You won't believe what just happened on live TV. Face screaming in fear, Jimmy Kimmel exposed Karoline Leavitt in front of millions. Secrets, lies, and total humiliation, and it was all caught on camera. Stick around, because this gets wild. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. It all went down live. It started like any other night. The lights dimmed, the audience clapped, and Jimmy Kimmel walked out with his signature grin, ready to dive into the day's news with a razor-sharp edge. But what no one expected was that tonight's target wasn't a Hollywood celebrity or a bizarre Florida man story. No, tonight it was Karoline Leavitt, and the gloves were off. Leavitt, just 26 years old, has made a name for herself as one of the youngest and most outspoken figures in the conservative political arena. A former Trump White House staffer and current congressional candidate, she's never been one to shy away from controversy. Whether it's firing off unapologetic tweets, questioning mainstream narratives, or making bold, often divisive statements. On the campaign trail, Karoline has been stirring the pot and catching heat from both sides. But Kimmel wasn't just here to poke fun. His monologue quickly turned from comedic jabs to pointed commentary. With a mixture of disbelief and sarcasm, he played a clip of Leavitt on a recent news show claiming that the media was brainwashing Americans against conservative values. Brainwashing, Kimmel said, pausing for effect. You're 26. At that age, most of us are trying to figure out how to open a Roth IRA or cook something that doesn't come from a box. The audience roared with laughter, but Kimmel wasn't done. He pulled up screenshots of Leavitt's recent social media posts, one where she called climate change a hoax by the radical left, and another slamming public school teachers as liberal indoctrinators. The tone of the room shifted slightly. People were laughing, yes, but also listening. Because Kimmel, beneath the comedy, was making a bigger point. This isn't just about being young and passionate, he said. It's about pushing fear, misinformation, and paranoia as a platform. And if your whole brand is, look how much I don't trust anyone, maybe you're not running for Congress. Maybe you're just auditioning for a guest spot on InfoWars. What followed was a montage Kimmel's team had compiled, clips of Leavitt on different talk shows, shouting down opponents, doubling down on her opinions, and insisting she was the only one telling the truth. It was brutal and viral-worthy. Before the show had even ended, Twitter was ablaze. Hashtags like #KimmelRoast and #CarolineClapback were trending within the hour. Leavitt's camp didn't take long to respond. Her spokesperson called the segment a disgusting and desperate smear from a Hollywood elitist and accused Kimmel of punching down on a young woman fighting for real Americans. Karoline herself went live on Instagram shortly after the episode aired, turning the moment into a rallying cry. The left is scared, she said to her followers. They know we're winning hearts. They know we're not backing down. But as the debate raged online, others were asking harder questions. Was Kimmel out of line? Or was he doing what late-night comedy is supposed to do? Hold public figures accountable, even if it means some feelings get hurt. Journalists, political pundits, and influencers weighed in. Some praised Kimmel for highlighting how extreme rhetoric has become part of mainstream political campaigns. Others warned that turning political discourse into late-night entertainment risks trivializing serious issues. And in the middle of it all was Karoline, trending, debated, dissected, and defended by the next morning. The clip had amassed over 6 million views on YouTube alone, with thousands of comments pouring in from both supporters and critics. Some viewers cheered Jimmy on. This is why we need comedy with a conscience. Others slammed him. Attacking a young conservative woman? Real brave, Jimmy. The controversy wasn't just viral, it was personal. Kimmel, who's been increasingly vocal about his political views in recent years, has never shied away from sparring with right-wing figures. But even for him, this was a step into a more combative space. And for Karoline Leavitt, the moment was either a major setback or a twisted kind of victory. Because love her or hate her, people were talking. And in politics, that's sometimes all that matters. As the dust settles and the news cycle spins on, one thing is certain, this wasn't just a joke. It was a moment, a cultural flashpoint, the kind of TV moment where everything feels lighthearted, until suddenly, it isn't. It all went down live, and nobody watching will forget it anytime soon. Kimmel's on-air takedown begins. With his signature smirk and a twinkle in his eye, Jimmy Kimmel leaned into the camera and dropped the line that would echo across social media before the night was over. Karoline Leavitt, the Gen Z candidate, who thinks fact-checking is a liberal conspiracy, is back in the news, and not for anything smart. The studio audience erupted with laughter. You could feel it, that moment when comedy and commentary blur into something sharp, timely, and maybe even a little dangerous. Kimmel knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't a casual roast. This was a takedown. Leavitt, the 26-year-old conservative firebrand and former Trump White House staffer, had been making waves for months with her bold campaign trail remarks and unapologetically right-wing social media presence. Her supporters call her a fresh voice for conservative youth. Her critics say she's a TikTok-age provocateur trying to ride outrage into Congress. Jimmy Kimmel clearly fell into the second camp. He pulled up a montage of Karoline's recent clips, interviews where she confidently dismissed climate change as alarmist propaganda, called mainstream media the enemy of the people, and accused school teachers of training kids to hate America. Overlaying those clips were screenshots of her tweets, many of which had already been fact-checked and proven misleading or outright false. Then came the viral blow. If confidence could replace credentials, Kimmel said with a deadpan look, Karoline would already be president. The crowd winced and then laughed again, louder this time. Online, the quote was instantly clipped, memed, and retweeted by thousands. Some found it brutal. Others found it perfect, but Jimmy wasn't letting up. He introduced a segment called Karoline's Greatest Hits, featuring sound bites from her campaign rallies. She appeared on screen, passionately declaring that she was more qualified than 99% of DC, and vowing to end the liberal stranglehold on truth. Kimmel paused the clip and raised an eyebrow. Okay, first of all, he said, if we're grading on the ability to shout the word freedom 10 times in under a minute, sure, she's a rock star. Then came the part that felt more like a body slam than a punchline. Kimmel rolled a supercut of Leavitt's speeches, edited with dramatic music and intentionally awkward zoom-ins, highlighting how rehearsed, and at times, derivative, her lines were. This is like watching a TED Talk meet a Twitter rant, delivered by someone who just discovered caffeine. He quipped. Laughter rolled through the studio again, but then the segment took a turn. Now, if you thought that was bad, Jimmy teased, wait until you see this. He rolled a clip of Leavitt being interviewed on a local morning show. When asked to name one specific piece of legislation she would propose in Congress, she paused and then pivoted into a speech about restoring American greatness without naming a single bill or policy. The crowd quieted, stunned. Even the studio band let out a low whistle. Yikes, Kimmel said. If you asked a Magic 8-Ball about legislation, you'd get a more specific answer. Twitter lit up again. Clips of the interview aired alongside Kimmel's commentary, and political pundits across the spectrum began weighing in. Some praised Kimmel for exposing what they saw as a lack of substance in Leavitt's platform. Others called it mean-spirited and accused the comedian of bullying a young female candidate. Leavitt herself wasted no time firing back. Within hours of the episode airing, she posted a video to her followers, calling Jimmy Kimmel a Hollywood hack and accusing him of mocking conservative women who don't bow to the liberal media. Her post racked up likes from high-profile conservative influencers, with some encouraging her to stay strong and keep fighting. But even critics admitted, Kimmel had struck a nerve. In less than 24 hours, the Kimmel versus Karoline showdown became a trending topic, discussed everywhere from morning talk shows to cable news panels. The debate wasn't just about jokes. It was about media, politics, age, gender, and what it means to be taken seriously in today's hyperpolarized landscape. As the episode ended, Kimmel shrugged and offered a final jab. Look, I'm not saying she's wrong about everything. But maybe, just maybe, we should ask for more than confidence before handing someone a congressional seat. Cue the applause. Fade to commercial. And just like that, another pop culture moment was born, one that would ripple far beyond the studio walls. Because when comedy meets politics in 2025, it's not just entertainment, it's war. The shocking secrets revealed. Here's where things went from funny to explosive. Jimmy Kimmel had already delivered his signature jabs, skewering Karoline Leavitt's fiery speeches, mocking her tweets, and playing viral clips that had the audience in stitches. But just when viewers thought the segment was winding down, Kimmel leaned back, narrowed his eyes, and said, "You know what's interesting? Sometimes, the past has a funny way of showing us the truth." On the screen behind him, a new video began to play. Grainy footage from a college news program, dated 4 years ago, showed a younger, softer-spoken Karoline Leavitt sitting across from a student interviewer at St. Anselm College. Her tone was calm, her posture relaxed, and her message completely different. "I think it's important that we don't let politics divide us," she said in the clip. "Bipartisanship is the only way forward, and we have to reject extremist rhetoric on both sides." The audience grew noticeably quieter as the clip continued. This wasn't just a change in tone. It was a philosophical 180 from the aggressive, hard-right image Karoline had recently crafted. The college version of Leavitt spoke of common ground, respectful debate, and finding solutions that work for everyone. It was almost unrecognizable. Kimmel let the silence hang for a moment before looking directly into the camera. "So, which is it, Karoline?" he asked. "The peace-loving college student or the fire-breathing MAGA warrior?" It wasn't just a rhetorical question. It was a challenge. And he wasn't done. Kimmel then pulled out a printed email, its subject line partially redacted, but still legible. "Confidential, base messaging strategy." It was a leaked internal campaign document obtained by a political journalist and shared with media outlets just hours earlier. The contents were damning. "We need to keep the base angry and engaged," the email read. "Don't shy away from exaggerating cultural threats, schools, gender stuff, media bias. It's what energizes people. Focus on emotion, not policy." And then, the line that sent Twitter into meltdown. "Tone is everything. We're not here to educate. We're here to activate." Kimmel raised an eyebrow. "Now, I'm not saying Karoline is lying to voters," he said. "But if this were a reality show, this would be the part where someone flips the table and yells, 'You're fake.'" The audience gasped, and then erupted into a mixture of laughter and stunned murmurs. People weren't just laughing anymore. They were listening. This wasn't satire. This was a major crack in the armor of a rising political figure. Online, the reaction was immediate. The leaked email, verified by the journalist who received it from a former campaign volunteer, began circulating across platforms. Hashtags like #LeavittLeak, #ExaggerateGate, and #KimmelExposed trended within hours. Even typically conservative-leaning outlets took notice, with some pundits calling the revelation concerning and others accusing the media of twisting an internal strategy memo into scandal that Leavitt's campaign issued a quick response, calling the email taken out of context and part of a coordinated smear effort by the liberal media and late-night propaganda machine. Karoline herself posted a video that night, claiming she was the victim of deep state operatives trying to silence a new generation of conservative leaders. But the damage was done. Critics seized on the email as proof that Karoline's firebrand persona was just that, a performance tailored to provoke outrage and drive headlines. To them, it validated their long-held suspicions that she was more interested in viral fame than real policy work. Supporters, however, rallied around her. "She's just playing the same media game everyone else plays," one conservative influencer tweeted. "Only difference is, she's good at it, and they're scared." Still, it was hard to ignore the optics. Kimmel hadn't just made fun of Karoline. He had revealed a striking inconsistency between her public and private personas. In the space of one episode, she went from being a rising star to a symbol of political performance art. And as Jimmy wrapped up the segment, he offered one final thought. "Look, maybe she changed her views. Maybe she found her true voice. But if the loudest voices in politics are just saying what they think people want to hear, what does that say about all of us?" The screen faded to black as the band kicked in. The moment wasn't just about Karoline anymore. It was about trust, authenticity, and the thin line between political messaging and manipulation. One thing was clear. The most shocking thing Karoline Leavitt might be hiding isn't her past or her policies, it's who she really is. Social media erupts. The internet exploded. Within minutes of Jimmy Kimmel's jaw-dropping segment on Karoline Leavitt airing, social media platforms ignited like wildfire. The takedown, a carefully layered mix of satire, video receipts, and A leaked campaign email was clipped, shared, remixed, and analyzed from every angle. It wasn't just a viral moment. It was a cultural flashpoint. Clips of Jimmy's monologue, especially the moment he asked, "So which is it, Karoline? The peace-loving college student or the fire-breathing MAGA warrior?" spread like digital wildfire. The hashtag Kimmel exposes Karoline climbed into the top 5 trending topics on X, formerly Twitter, followed closely by hashtag Karoline caught, hashtag Leavitt leak, and the more tongue-in-cheek hashtag who even is Karoline. Up by sunrise the next morning, millions had seen the footage, not just Jimmy's loyal late-night audience, but everyone from cable news anchors to TikTok creators. In fact, one TikTok clip of the leaked email segment hit over 10 million views overnight, accompanied by duets and stitch reactions from both political junkies and casual users. And the reactions? They were as divided as the country itself. On one side, progressives and centrists hailed Kimmel's segment as comedy journalism at its finest. Many praised him for exposing what they saw as calculated inauthenticity. "This is why we need satire," one X-user posted. "When politicians play a character, someone has to pull back the curtain." Others took a more pointed tone. "Karoline Leavitt lied to get attention, and Jimmy just gave her more than she can handle," wrote a political blogger whose post racked up thousands of reposts. But not everyone was cheering. Conservatives and right-leaning influencers blasted the segment as a hit piece masquerading as humor. Some accused Kimmel of misogyny in disguise, claiming that if a young liberal woman had been in Leavitt's shoes, the tone would have been far gentler. "He's not a comedian anymore," tweeted one commentator. "He's a Democratic attack dog with a studio audience." In an unexpected twist, even fellow late-night hosts weighed in. Stephen Colbert opened his monologue the next night with a smirk. "Looks like Karoline got Kimmeled, which is worse than getting canceled. It's getting canceled with a laugh track." Meanwhile, Seth Meyers joked, "Karoline says she's fighting for real Americans." Well, real Americans just watched you get fact-checked by a comedian in front of millions. As the comedy world had its fun, political commentators and analysts got to work dissecting what this could mean for Leavitt's future. Some believe the exposure would damage her chances among moderate voters, especially in swing districts where authenticity matters more than ideology. The footage of her college interviews, where she preached cooperation and denounced extremism, clashed hard with her current ultra-partisan persona. "She's selling one version of herself now," one MSNBC panelist noted. But the question is, which Karoline will voters believe is the real one? Others argued that the scandal could paradoxically help her. In the age of outrage politics, getting attacked by a Hollywood comedian can be spun into proof of credibility among anti-establishment voters. "She's already fundraising off it," a CNN contributor pointed out. Her team has turned Kimmel into the villain, a perfect foil for their campaign's narrative. Indeed, Leavitt's team moved quickly to control the story. Within hours of the segment airing, her campaign released a statement slamming Kimmel as a smug, out-of-touch Hollywood elite attacking real Americans who don't bow to the woke mob. In a follow-up video posted to her Instagram and TikTok accounts, Karoline leaned into her defiance. "Jimmy Kimmel and his friends in the media want to cancel strong conservative women," she said, staring straight into the camera. "But I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I'm just getting started." The comments section lit up with support. Her base, young conservatives and MAGA loyalists, praised her for standing her ground. "Keep fighting," one wrote. "You must be doing something right if they're this scared of you." But even as she pushed back, the damage had been done. The leaked email was out there. The college video was out there. And perhaps most importantly, millions of politically undecided viewers had just watched a late-night host raise legitimate questions about a rising political star's authenticity. In the end, it wasn't just about one night of jokes. It was about a narrative that could stick, the idea that Karoline Leavitt might not be who she claims to be. And whether it helps or hurts her, that question is now following her wherever she goes. One thing is certain, for better or worse, everyone is talking about Karoline Leavitt, and they're not stopping anytime soon. What happens next? Now, the big question: what's next for Karoline Leavitt? In the aftermath of Jimmy Kimmel's viral monologue, part comedy, part expose, the political world is holding its breath. The segment didn't just ridicule Leavitt's public persona. It challenged the foundation of her political narrative. And now, everyone from campaign strategists to late-night viewers is wondering, how will she respond, and what will it mean for her future? Some insiders see this as a potential turning point, a make-or-break moment for the 26-year-old conservative firebrand. The leaked email, the resurfaced college interview, and the brutal public mocking weren't just PR headaches. They forced a reckoning. Is Karoline Leavitt the unfiltered, no-nonsense, America First warrior she claims to be? Or is she an ambitious political actor, fine-tuning her message to match whatever will get the loudest applause? One path forward for Leavitt is recalibration. Her critics, even some on the right, argue that if she wants to be seen as a serious leader and not just a social media sensation, she'll need to clarify her positions, show some ideological consistency, and speak candidly about her evolution. They argue this could be her maturity moment, a chance to acknowledge growth, admit past naivety, and shift from provocateur to policymaker. If she's smart, one GOP strategist told a news outlet, she'll lean into it. Say, yes, I've changed. I've learned. But I'm still fighting for the same American values. People forgive growth. What they don't forgive is phoniness. But that's not the only theory. Others believe this moment won't hurt Karoline at all. In fact, it might even help her. To her loyal base, Kimmel's segment was exactly what they expect from the so-called liberal media machine, a coordinated, elitist attack on a young woman who dares to challenge the status quo. In their eyes, Leavitt isn't a hypocrite. She's a victim, a target, proof that she's effective enough to scare Hollywood into striking back. In this narrative, Leavitt doesn't need to apologize or explain. She just needs to double down, turn Kimmel's jokes into campaign ads, lean into her outsider persona, and continue branding herself as the anti-establishment warrior being silenced by the powerful. And to her credit, she wasted no time doing exactly that. Within 24 hours of the episode airing, Leavitt's campaign posted a video montage of Kimmel's jokes alongside footage of her speaking at rallies, overlaid with bold text. They mock us because they fear us. The caption? They can laugh. We'll lead. It racked up hundreds of thousands of views and thousands of donations to S.O. What happens next may depend less on what Leavitt says and more on how the public chooses to interpret this firestorm. For some, this is a moment of exposure, when the mask slipped and the real Karoline was revealed, a politician whose message may be more about performance than principle. For others, it's just another example of media bias, a celebrity pylon meant to undermine a rising conservative star. What's clear, though, is that this wasn't just a late-night joke. It was a full-blown cultural moment. In just one evening, Kimmel used his platform and a few well-timed video receipts to challenge the narrative of one of America's fastest-rising young politicians. And the country responded. Loudly, cable news segments, TikTok debates, Twitter threads, podcast breakdowns. Everyone, from college kids to political veterans, is now talking about Karoline Leavitt in a new context, not just as a headline-grabbing candidate, but as a case study in the power of media, the complexity of image, and the volatility of political identity in the social media age. And in a digital world where perception is power, Jimmy Kimmel may have done more than mock Karoline. He may have shifted the public conversation around her entirely. She may have hoped to control her narrative, to define herself on her own terms, in her own voice. But in just one night, Kimmel flipped the script. With one monologue, he turned a candidate into a controversy and forced the public to ask questions she didn't plan to answer, whether you see it as comedy, journalism, or political warfare. One thing's for certain, everyone's watching now. And in 2025, that might be the only thing that matters. And that's the story, wild, unexpected, and unfolding in real time. If you thought this was intense, just wait. The next chapter is always closer than you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a twist.